Welcome to the 4th Annual African American Symposium on Disabilities in Phoenix, Arizona.
Morning, good morning. Okay. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'd like to welcome to the 4th Annual African American Symposium on Disabilities. This is our 4th year. My name is Ronaldo Fowler. I'm with the Arizona Center for Disability Law, and I'm one of the co-founders of the symposium. Also, in the back is David, the other co-founder of the symposium in the blue shirt. In the back. We have an exciting program for you today. Please get to know each other, communicate, good resources today. I'd like to recognize the DD Network, the Arizona Developmental Disabilities Network, Larry, Leslie, Tom Uno, JC, JJ. Could you just kind of like wave? These are the folks that are big supporters of this organization. They make this happen. And what I want to do now is to introduce Phil, CEO and President of ABLE, one of our partners with the African American Symposium.
Okay. All right, I'm on. All right. Try that again. Hey, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Again, like Ronaldo said, welcome to all of you to the symposium again, 4th time, and thrilled we're continuing to be able to do this. The first thing I wanted to do was recognize the sponsors of the symposium, and I will tell you, this is something I take really, really seriously, because without our sponsors, we wouldn't have this, and so it's so valuable to thank them and just express appreciation to them. So first of all, I want to thank United Healthcare Community Care Plan, and if anyone from United is here, you can raise your hand. You can even say, woo woo! You guys want to cheer yourselves? Do that. Also, the Arizona Center for Disability Law, you guys can cheer yourselves. My organization, ABLE. Yay! NAU, Northern Arizona University Institute for Human Development. University of Arizona, Sonoran USED. Great, glad you guys came up. The Arizona Commission for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. And the Arizona Developmental Disabilities Planning Council. Where's Larry and a couple individuals, Gene Fairfax. Is Gene here? And Perkins Coy, also, which I believe is a law firm. Perkins Coy. So we thank all of the sponsors, and we're very appreciative. So, the other thing I wanted to quickly do is just mention a little bit about the Disability Empowerment Center. I mean, I'm happy to be here representing ABLE, Arizona Bridge to Independent Living, but also for those of you who've never been to the Disability Empowerment Center, has any of you never been to the Disability Empowerment Center? No, a couple of you, so a lot of you have, but I want to mention the organizations that are there to serve people with disabilities and their family members, and the community at large. Arizona Autism United, ABLE is there, the Center for Disability Law, Arizona Spinal Cord Injury Association, the Brain Injury Association, Johnny and Friends, NAMI, Arizona, the National Alliance for the Mentally Ill, the National Multiple Sclerosis Society, Symbios Medical is there, Raising Special Kids, Statewide Independent Living Council, and Valley Center of the Deaf. So a lot of great organizations that are co-located and are partners with us at the Disability Empowerment Center, and want you to be aware of that. And also the Sports and Fitness Center, the SPOFIT. So lots of great resources. Just come over and tell your friends, neighbors, and about all the great organizations that are there, because we can offer a lot of great services for people with disabilities. With that, again, welcome. Have a great day, a great symposium, and I'll turn it over to, I think, JJ's going to come up and provide a welcome. Have a great day. JJ Rico, our new Executive Director of the Arizona Center for Disability Law.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to say good morning also, so good morning everyone. Good morning. All right, and welcome to the 4th Annual African American Symposium. You guys are in for a real treat. I've had the opportunity to speak for 4 years now, and you get to hear me again if you'd like. If you don't have to go to my session. But I'm excited to be here. Let me tell you a little bit that the rumor is true. I do know Ronaldo Fowler, so if that gives me any credentials or into any special places, I do know that guy. And it's a pleasure to work with him at the Center for Disability Law, which is the protection and advocacy system for the state of Arizona. We are a nonprofit public interest law firm that provides free legal services to people with disabilities in the state of Arizona. So if you're looking for a free lawyer, which doesn't often exist, and you feel that you've been discriminated against, we're the office for you. So feel free to contact us. If you're looking to participate or contribute to the ACDL, please feel free to visit our table to pick up some of our information, sign up on our mailing list, and we'd be happy to send you some great information, maybe even something with Ronaldo's picture in it, if that gets us anywhere. The other thing that I'd like to share with you is our mission and vision at ACDL, which I think really is probably a unified message for the disability movement as it exists now and in the future. So I'll read what our mission is. Let me tell you what our vision is, because our vision is a society that focuses on people's abilities rather than their disabilities. And think about that today and think about it in the future as you interact and cross folks and talk to people today. Again, focus on the abilities rather than the disabilities. So the last thing I'd like to say is, like I was saying earlier, I've presented 4 times, and I understand that you all have options when choosing conferences or symposiums, and I'm happy that you chose this one, because I think you're going to be rewarded by your experience and what you learned today. But I challenge each of you to network, and that means talk to people you don't normally talk to, interact with folks you may not normally interact with, learn something new, ask challenging questions, and have a good time. There's some good food today, so enjoy that as well. And there's great tables. I think there might be some back scratchers left. So I think that's a United Healthcare table. They have some back scratchers / foot shoehorn type of things. Very interesting combination. You always find interesting things at tables, not only at the symposium, but anywhere you go. So again, I look forward to meeting some of you today, and enjoy yourselves. Now, I have the pleasure of introducing one of our keynotes for today, Mr. Aaron Bishop. Mr. Bishop is currently the Commissioner of the Administration on Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities, otherwise known as AIDD. And AIDD provides financial and leadership support to organizations in every state and territory in the United States to ensure that individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities and their families can fully participate and contribute to all aspects of community life. AIDD oversees 4 grant programs established by the Developmental Disabilities Act, Assistance in Bill of Rights Act of 2000. He oversees the President's Committee for People with Intellectual Disabilities and administers the disability provisions of the Help America Vote Act in each state or territory. The 4 grant programs form a Developmental Disabilities Network, or DD network, as Ronaldo identified each member in the room. Mr. Bishop has 20 years of experience in working with and for individuals with disabilities in both the direct practice and public policy sectors. Aaron was the Executive Director of the National Council on Disability from November 2010 until February 2013. Aaron's previous work experience also includes serving as a project coordinator in the Weissman Center, University Center for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities, or the UCED, where he managed projects that advance the rights of individuals with disabilities. He also served as a site coordinator and director of technical assistance for the National Service Inclusion Project for Association of University Centers on Disabilities. Aaron received his Master's of Science in Social Work degree with an emphasis in public policy and 2 Bachelor of Science and Natural Sciences degrees from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Born and raised, he said, so it's happy to learn that. So put your hands together and please help me welcome Aaron Mitchell.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. How are you doing today? Good. A little more enthusiasm. How are you doing today? Great. Excellent, excellent. Yes. Before we get started, I want to thank a few people as well. I want to thank JJ, first of all, for his kind words in introducing me this morning. I'd also like to thank all of the sponsors of this event, including United Healthcare Community Care Plan, the DD Network programs you heard about earlier today, the independent living programs and the work that they're doing to help pull together this conference, also the Commission for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing as well, and for many, many others. There are too many people to mention who have been instrumental in pulling this event together. I'd also like to take 2 moments to first introduce 2 of my staff who are also here and people that I want you all to get to know. We have Ophelia McLean over here, who works for AIDD, and Allison Cruz, who's back here. And we'll all be available later today when we have our listening session to talk about diversity and some of the work that we're doing. And lastly, I want to thank JC. Because if it wasn't for her reaching out and making the request to come out here and present to you all today, I wouldn't be here. But she didn't just stop there. She helped in organizing and planning my entire trip here and putting together an event schedule that started yesterday morning here in Phoenix and ends Tuesday in Flagstaff with a trip to Mexico in between. So she's done a phenomenal job, and I just want to thank her for her leadership as well. So thank you for inviting me today to this event. It's a pleasure to be here opening the 4th Annual African American Symposium on Disabilities. And it's especially important given that this is the end of Black History Month. And to be able to take the time to really have true and honest discussions about disability and how it intersects with race and ethnicity. And we're focusing on one particular group at this point in time, but this is rare. I was talking to people last night at a reception that was held, and I don't think you realize how rare this event is. Now, I happen to say that it's also 20 degrees in Washington, D.C. right now. It's snowing, so that made it a little bit easier to come out as well. But I started conducting internet searches after JC told me about this conference. I think our first discussion was 18 months ago. There's very few conferences across the United States that are like this, that are taking place, focusing on the topics that you're focusing on. And looking at the agenda, topics being self-determination and self-advocacy, employment, special education law, assistive technology, mental health, These are all issues that are critical to the African American community and to all communities. But we rarely take the time to sit down and talk about how these issues affect one particular group. We don't. And how we look at and talk about these items through a particular lens. Now, in saying that, in saying a particular lens, in no way am I saying that all African Americans are the same. I'm going to use some of the information that I've gathered from my dear friend and colleague, Dr. Tawara Good. And when using the term ethnic and racial lens, again, I'm not implying that we're all the same. All people, regardless of who they are, and you all know this, have multiple dimensions of culture and identity. We all may, or most of us in this room may identify as being African American, but we have very unique ideas, opinions, thoughts, beliefs, and values. So I want to make that clear that I'm not lumping us all together saying that we all think one specific way. But I am going to lump us all together. And again, we rarely stop and take the time to ask, how do policies, programs, or concepts affect a particular community? I'm going to give you one example. Self-determination and self-advocacy. Extremely important topics based upon empowerment. Knowing that a number of people with disabilities were excluded for years of making their own decisions about basic daily living, when to get up, when to go to bed, what to eat. So we embarked and developed self-advocacy and self-determination. How do you live a self-determined life? But here's the caveat. I'm not going to say it's bad. But self-determination is really focused on an individual. And an individual making a decision. And when I go and speak at SAVE, Self-Advocates Becoming Empowered, and People First conferences, and talk to advocates about this, what I tend to hear is, I make the decision, and I make it on my own without anybody else. Without receiving input, ideas, the decision is mine. And at the end of the day, yes, when the words come out of your mouth, completely agree with that. However, is that reality? How many people in this room have had surgery in the past, 5 years? Okay. Did you make that decision of having surgery on your own? Did you talk to a spouse, a loved one, your doctor? Did you receive different consultations? Now, that's an extreme. But what about going to the movies? What about figuring out, you know what, I'm going to go on a date with somebody. Where should we go? Did you ever talk to friends and colleagues about that and helping you make that decision? Okay. So again, it's a beautiful concept. But now I'm going to turn back to the topic of this meeting. There are pockets, and I'm going to say pockets because it's not everybody. There are pockets of the African American community, of the Asian American community, of the Hispanic community, of Eastern European migrants and others, where when you make a decision as a family. You don't make a decision as an individual. So how do we take this individualism that's in self-determination and self-advocacy and bring it over here to this dichotomy? How do we bridge that? And I'm going to bring it home and make it real for a second. My grandmother's 94 years old. Lives in Madison, Wisconsin, in a house with 4 generations of African American women. going to say that again. One house, 4 generations, African American women. Some people in that house identify with having a disability. All right? But if you live in that house, the person that you are going to make a decision, to talk through the decision with, is her. Now, at the end of the day, she's not going to make the decision for you, but she's going to provide you with guidance and information. And guess what? Most people, when you don't live there anymore, they're doing the same thing. So, if a traditional self-advocacy organization member came into my grandmother's house and said, that person right there needs to make their own decisions on their own without you, do you know what happened? As kindly as the individuals were escorted into the house, they would be escorted out of the house. So I'm bringing humor and levity to this, but to illustrate a specific point. We don't have these discussions to really figure out how do we make some of these concepts real and available to all people. Because if we try to sell the packages that we have to certain groups, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. Policies. I'm going to talk a little bit about the home and community-based services rule that's coming out there, that came up through the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services. In it, there's a wonderful provision regarding person-centered planning and how Medicaid is now really going to recognize and push person-centered planning. Never thought I'd see the day. Fabulous. But are we ready for what that means? In Minnesota, particularly in Minneapolis, there's a large Sudanese population that has higher incidence, self-reported, of autism. First and second generation migrants. If you have an individual from that community that comes and develops a plan that has some cultural things in it that's not recognized by that particular Medicaid system, what's going to happen? What type of conflicts are we going to have? And I can say the same thing about how many direct service providers do we have in the room today? A few. Your workforce. We know that direct service providers, in some states, they have 100% turnover annually. The individuals who are taking those positions now are typically migrants from other countries. China, Vietnam, Haiti, Cuba, Dominica. How do we ensure that those individuals have training on disability? To make sure that individuals understand that you're not being paternalistic. How do you deliver appropriate services if that's not the mindset that you're coming from? And at the same time then, how do we deal with discrimination? If you have the individual who's the beneficiary of services, and they're from, I'll just say, an Asian American community, and the person providing the services happens to be from Eastern Europe. We don't talk about that, and particularly between races. We assume that when we say people of color, that everyone's together and singing Kumbaya. And that's not the case. So that's why I'm happy to be here. And so we can start talking about these issues and getting them on the table. Because no one's doing this. No one is doing this. This needs to happen nationwide. It needs to happen here. It needs to happen in Washington, D.C. It needs to happen in Butte, Montana. It needs to happen in Madison, Wisconsin. And it needs to happen with other ethnic and racial groups. This is the example. We need this to occur everywhere. And why do we need this to occur everywhere? Because times are changing. We have data from the Department of Education that shows that this year, for the first time in U.S. history, this year, there are more students of color graduating from the United States high schools than European Americans. For the first time. It's happening in certain states. And we've seen it happen in certain states, but this is now, when you look collectively at the United States and all individuals who are graduating. I used to say that the tidal wave was coming. It's here. And the time has come for us to start talking about these issues, getting them on the table, and figuring out plans for the future. Otherwise, we're going to have battles that we weren't prepared for. So how are we going to respond? And this is where I'm going to start to switch. How's the government going to respond? AIDD has identified this as an issue. And I want to say that primarily staff at AIDD identified this as an issue. As you heard, I started in 2013, in February of 2013. And we started having staff discussions about diversity in May of that year. Because the DD Act has language that states that our programs, developmental disability councils, the protection and advocacy agencies, and the University Centers for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities are supposed to provide culturally competent services. It's mandated in the DD Act. We have to do it. But I have to be honest, we've been unsure nationwide if we, as a collective we, including AIDD, if we've been meeting that goal. And with the changing in demographics and programs, we have to be accountable. We have to. So we're starting to take action. And this isn't the blame game where I'm going to look at and then blame our network for having faults. You know, we're looking at ourselves too. We conducted a gap analysis. And we determined that there were some places where we needed to do some work. For instance, we hadn't had cultural competency training in years. So we had different people in different groups provide that for us. We realized that we weren't collecting the right data. What's the old adage? If it's not reported, it doesn't get done. We weren't asking for specific data, and we're still not. So we first identified the data that we're lacking, and we're trying to figure out how do we capture it, how do we ask the questions so we start to get that data. We're having those internal conversations. We're doing the same thing with our monitoring. So when we're going out and conducting monitoring reviews, which are different than site visits, but monitoring reviews, again, what are we looking at to help us determine whether or not the entities that we fund are providing culturally competent services? And AIDD, as an entity, we aren't reaching out. We're not reaching out to historically underrepresented groups and telling them about opportunities that we have and then helping people apply to grants. So we're making these changes. We're trying to figure out how do we make these changes internally, because I have less than 2 years in this administration. When this administration ends, my time at AIDD ends. So I have less than 2 years to work with staff to embed this into what we do every day so that it lasts for the next 5, 10, 15 years and longer. So that's what we're doing internally. But we've also started to turn the door and do things externally as well, which is where you all come in. One of the things that we funded is a Diversity Leadership Institute. And you'll hear a little bit more about it later today. But right now, we're taking applications for people who are interested in talking about raising awareness and developing protocols to address diversity in your nonprofit organizations to receive the tools to do so. We're taking applications right now. If you go to the National, and I just liked it, the National Center for Cultural Competency website. You'll find the information there. We're reaching out to federal agencies to learn about what they're doing. Because we're realizing that we're not in this alone, but there are bits and pockets of federal agencies that are doing this type of work. CDC, Centers for Disease Control, has minority pipeline grants to help people from underrepresented groups go into public health professions. National Institutes of Health, NIH, does the same thing for researchers. HRSA, I can't remember what HRSA stands for right now, but it's at the Department of Health and Human Services as well. They've done a lot regarding training, and they've done a lot regarding their funding opportunity announcements to get out as broad as possible and to have as many people and voices apply for their funding. The Department of Labor is focusing on employment, and they're working with minority-serving institutions. So we're finding out that all of these pockets are doing all this type of similar work, and we need to feed into that. We're also working with our DD partners. And I'm not even going to say we're not mandating. We're engaging with them. We're collaborating with them. Why? Because they need to buy into this too and make it embedded in the work that they're doing. And that's not going to work if we simply come with a hammer. If we come with a hammer with some dollars attached to it, then that'll probably get some attention. But we can't come from just having a hammer. But we're engaging with them. And we're looking at staffing issues. We want more people with disabilities. We want more people of color. We want more people from LGBT communities. We need to look at SES status to come and become part of our network. That doesn't mean that will lead to culturally competent services. It could. It could lead to specific programming, but what it would do is it would generate ideas. It may generate connections to groups that we don't have. We're also looking at services, and this is where the DD Act comes in. How do we ensure that we're providing culturally competent services? And I'm going to pick on a few groups, but I'm not doing it negatively. I'm doing it to illustrate something. DD councils across the United States, in their 5-year plan, have to determine how they're going to receive input from groups. So I'm going to pick on a neighboring state California. If they're deciding that they're going to go out and hold public forums and talking to people, where are they going and who are they talking to? Are they going to Simi Valley? Are they going to UCLA? Or are they going to South Central? Are we going to, in Tucson here, when we talk to people, are we going to Oro Valley or are we going to South Tucson? And then how does that lead to systems change and policy development? Disproportionality among African American males is through the roof, and we don't know why. Well, we do know why. But if a DD council does not know that, that may not become a priority for them. P&As have to do this on an annual basis. P&As have to do this on an annual basis. And we have data that shows that, again, historically, the kids who are being secluded and restrained in schools and are being expelled are African American males. All right? So your P&A here is focusing on that and doing that work because they understand that. Why? Because they've talked to the community. But that's not happening everywhere. And I'm going to pick on my home state from Wisconsin, when I was at the Wiseman Center. We had developmental disability clinics, CP clinics, autism clinics, speech and language pathology clinics. We had all of these clinics, and we were pulling from various places in Madison. And if you don't know the state, Milwaukee's the largest city at 600,000. It's the most diverse city. I was there for a year and a half, and there were probably less than 10 families that came from Milwaukee to utilize our services. We weren't pulling from that region. Why? We have to do better. We have to do better. And we need to work with our national partners. We need to start doing things with the NAACP. We need to start reaching out to and working with the Urban League. And our plan is to start doing that. But we also know that at times in certain states, in certain locations, we don't have those inroads. We don't have those connections to start building relationships. We've actually tried in multiple ways working with a few national groups, and I'm not going to name the groups because I don't want to upset anybody, and talking to people about disability, and those groups were not receptive. Those groups were unfortunately not receptive, and we have to break that wall down as well. So that's why I'm here today. We need your help. We need your help. You've done something special here in creating this conference. It's unique. It's one of the only ones like it in the United States. We're going to be having a listening session at 10:30 today. We're going to talk to you maybe a little bit more detail for about 20 minutes about specifics that we're looking for, but we need your ideas. And I'll say this isn't a complaint session. We need ideas on how to move forward. We need ideas on things that we should fund to help build and drive that pipeline, to have more people with disabilities working throughout our network, to have more people of color working in our network, and for more people of color with disabilities to be benefiting from our network. Not only do we need our ideas, we need your connections. Because if one of you knows somebody at a local or a state NAACP, we need to know that. Because when we're ready to hopefully talk to the NAACP this summer and come to them with a platform saying, this is who we are, this is what we can offer you, not make any demands, we need that connection. We need that inroad. Because not only do we need it in Washington, D.C., but we need it in Oregon, we need it in Tennessee, we need it in Florida, we need it in Maine. And if we can start building those connections and getting that information from the people in this room, it will only make us stronger. It will only push our initiative farther. So that's my request and that's my plea to you, is even if you can't make it to that session, talk to us, find us, tell us your story, and let's have a quick 10-15 minute dialogue, and let's not lose connection. But you're here at something special, and I'm very honored and privileged today to help you open this conference. And I wish you all the best of luck, and I hope you have a fabulous day listening to all the presenters in this room. So thank you very much for your time.